Will Arnett stars as Alex in this comedy drama from director Bradley Cooper as a middle-aged man facing divorce but finds a new calling in the New York comedy scene. While his wife confronts the sacrifices she made for their family, it's a really interesting dynamic between how two people go about divorce and go through that. So join us as we break down Is This Thing On?
So like we talked about in the intro, this film is about, a couple, Tess and Alex here, played by, Will Arnett and Laura Dern here, as just this couple who are kind of at the end of the end of the run of their marriage, right? They've been married for a long time. They've been together a long time. They feel like they've kind of strung things along as far as they can in their marriage. And you jump right in with a very funny scene with Will just being tired of everything. And you just see like this just depressed state that he is in. And you get the reveal that, they have separated. Will's moved out of the house. He's, on his own, living on his own, and he's kind of going through almost like a midlife crisis almost, where it's just like, how do I start this new chapter of my life where I'm now single and middle-aged? I've got two boys that are both 10 that are, growing up and trying to balance being a great father for them and still trying to find passion in his life, basically. And he kind of turns to stand-up comedy, which I have to love because that's basically where Will Arnett is best known for. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch for him, obviously, to play a guy jumping into stand-up comedy. But I gotta say, man, I absolutely love this movie. This film was so smartly written, so funny, and so well acted in this. I was kind of taken a little bit by surprise because I didn't know what we were going to get out of this, but I was very, very pleasantly surprised with what I got out of this movie.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say this is probably Will Arnett's best performance of his career. Like, he balances the humor, but with darkness and emotion and struggle. Like, if you go into this expecting it to be a movie that's about a guy trying to become a comedian, it's not exactly that. It's about learning and coping, because the comedy scene, just to not giving too much away about the plot, but the comedy aspect is basically therapy for him. He's finding a way to move on or deal with what's going on with his marriage and his divorce through comedy, because it's really funny, because he's going to this bar because he wants a drink, but you have to pay a $15 cover charge because it's a comedy club. And instead of forking out the $15 to do that, he's like, all right, I'll sign up and I'll go do stand-up. Like, not prepared, no jokes, no anything. He's just like, I don't want to pay $15 for a cover charge. This is a guy, he works in finance. He's got a little bit of money. But you also got to know divorce is expensive and everything else, and he just got a new apartment, and he's still trying to figure out. But it was this little bit whimsical that, I'm not going to pay the $15 cover charge, so I'll just do stand-up comedy instead. But it worked, and it worked so well because it's not about him being a perfect, great comedian. You see bombing, you see struggling, you see him not knowing what to do. But it also what makes the film work so well, because you sit in that uncomfortableness with the crowd of when the jokes aren't hitting and things aren't going good. But you also get to laugh and have that fun, like especially one sequence where he forgets the end of his joke. And so he calls up to one of the other comedians to look at his folder to tell him the end. And she just busts out some jokes back at him. And there's this great kind of back and forth that they do there. But it works so well because the humor feels genuine and good, but also because of the heartbreak and the heartache, and the story of their divorce feels real. It's not your typical type of divorce story, because no one cheated, no one did anything particularly wrong. They've been together for 20 years. They kind of grew apart. They looked at things in different ways. They kind of both lost themselves. And I actually didn't expect how this film ended up ending with it as well, but it felt right, and it felt like it moved and it flowed just in the right way. And I got such great enjoyment out of this film.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for the ending of it either, but you hit the nail on the head so well, because what it does so well is it feels authentic. It doesn't feel forced. Like, not to kind of go back and beat a dead horse, but we talked about in our review of Anaconda how the comedy in it just felt so forced and like inauthentic and just not good. Like, this is smart comedy, well written. Like, the parts that are meant to be funny are funny, but like you mix that so well with just the rawness of the emotion and everything that he was feeling. You actually genuinely felt like he was a man going through a divorce and just kind of dealing with it. Like you said, dealing with it through stand-up comedy was very therapeutic for him. And you see him kind of, depending on what was going on in his life and how well it reflected in his comedy. Because a lot of times people say that the most funny people in stand-up are like the ones that are really broken and have the awful lives and have the awful things that happen to them, that they just have that innate ability to kind of turn it into something funny and relatable for everybody. And they do such a brilliant job of writing that. It helps because the star of the movie was literally a stand-up comic and got famous and was on SNL, and, you know, just the route that he had, you can kind of lend that authenticity to this character in a way that works. And it just works so well in this because you feel it. You feel for both of these people who neither one of them are bad people. And it's just going through a real messy situation of, like you said, two people that very clearly loved each other, just didn't know how to communicate it and make it work to where they could get the other one to see things from their perspective. And you just see how that lack of communication really drove this hard wedge that just, if you don't address it over time, just gets worse and worse and worse and worse until it eventually explodes in a way that very clearly did for these two. And it was just such a well-written, realistic look at a relationship that just, nobody has to be the bad guy here, but you kind of feel for everyone in this situation. And it felt very authentic in the way it was written.
Yeah, and the little like picking fights that they do with each other feels, because they're trying not to yell and scream at each other around the kids, but they're still arguing and having stuff. But there were so genuinely funny moments because you can feel that it felt like a genuine relationship. About the arm wire that he took out of storage and put in his apartment and stuff, and they're making jokes about that, and she's like, you got this in your bedroom and doing stuff in front of, like, I wouldn't do anything in front of her arm wire. And like, it just felt so genuinely natural conversation between two people who, as you said, they still clearly have feelings and care for each other, but there's just something that they both can't get over. And it's not like you're cheering for one over the other or anything else. It's like you genuinely feel sorry for both of them and what they're going through, because you know that there was something that worked well there, but they, just had something that came between them. And you also get Bradley Cooper putting himself in there as Balls, who was just, he's high as a kite throughout the entire movie. His facial hair is always changing. He's playing an actor who's trying to get, but it has one of the most genuine, funny moments that I just laugh so hard at. So that it's the only moment we talked about after the movie, because I'm like, it got me so good, because they're at the birthday party for the kids, as trying to be adults and still do stuff. And Bradley Cooper shows up and he's holding one of the dogs, and Alex brings it up and he's like, wait, what? Oh yeah. And then just a few seconds later, he goes, Bradley Cooper's character Balls, he goes, I got way too high. I don't even realize I'm holding a dog. It's not a Chihuahua. It's not a Shih Tzu or a Yorkie.
It's a big dog.
It's like a lab.
Yeah.
He's holding a full-size grown big dog. He's like, I didn't even realize I'm holding the dog. And the look in his face and the way he delivered it. But it was also something you pointed out. Yes. The look on the dog's face just sold that joke.
I was dying laughing. It was so funny. And it's one of those things, like, anybody that knows anything about me, I love subtle humor. I love smart humor. I love humor that it's just like, it's not super obvious unless you notice something specific, and I'm just gone. Like, and the look on that dog's face just absolutely sent me out of it, because it's just a real sullen, like,
hurry.
What can I do? I'm kind of being held by this guy, and I don't know what to do. It was just so funny, and Bradley Cooper played that so well, so well. It's just a perfectly funny moment, and it was just so incredible. My sides hurt after that moment, just because of how subtle and funny it was. It was just hit me at the right moment at the right time. It's just fantastically done.
Yeah, I think that's a good example of the movie, is that it hit the right notes at the right times that it needed to, because when it needed to be dynamic and emotional and have them arguing or working through stuff, it hit it, but then it came right back with the humor and everything else. Like I said, this is my favorite performance of Arnett was fantastic in Arrested Development and a lot of other stuff he's done, and of course being Lego Batman. But this really showed off a range that we haven't seen from him before, because you got the humor, but you got the sadness behind his eyes, and you got the emotion. And still, one of my favorite scenes happens between his dad shows up for one of his shows, but it happens to be one of the worst shows that he put on. But there was such a genuine moment between those two, and just getting kind of a dad joke in there, like, next time, why don't you try some jokes? And just the way Will reacted and his dad reacted, it had that emotional touch. But also, as guys who have lost their dads, it was also something like, God, I miss my dad. Because he would do that type of joke. He would say so much, like when people would leave for the holidays, well, I'm glad you got to see me again. Because it's that off-the-wall type of humor stuff. And that had like an emotional connection to me. But it was such a dad joke within there. But there was so many good moments like that they knew when to hit you with the emotion and when to hit you with the laughs, but they also knew when to let you sit in the uncomfortableness of their relationship, but also the jokes not falling well, and a really uncomfortable moment that we won't spoil, but there's a big sequence towards the end that happens that you feel really uncomfortable, but you're supposed to. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable for all of the characters in that moment.
Yeah, they strike a really good tone and a really well balanced. It's just a well balanced movie. Like it hits. It doesn't sit in one emotion for too long, but it sits in it in just the appropriate amount of time before it moves you through to the next beat of the story, and it just flows so well. I was a little worried when it was a full 2 hour. When I saw it was a full 2 hour movie, I was like, is it going to drag on a little in something? And I don't really think it suffered from any real pacing issues throughout this movie. It's just a well paced, well told story. It's got a couple great cameos in it as well, including a well-known stand-up comic, as well as somebody who I definitely won't spoil, but they have an unbelievable line in that we'll save that.
I lost it at
we'll
that line.
For
he
you.
delivered it perfectly. For not being an actor, he delivered that perfectly.
It's a word you don't expect to ever come out of that man's mouth, but it is well done, so funny, and man, I love this movie way more than I thought I would. This is such a great kickoff to like what we've talked about in our last episode of stuff we're looking forward to in 2026. Just a great kickoff to a hopefully really good year for movies. And this is a great thing to break in the new year with, just kind of a movie that I was very pleasantly surprised at just how much of I enjoyed. They give great performances. Laura Dern, I want to give her flowers as well.
Yeah, I hadn't yet, but she was fantastic.
Yeah, just amazing in it as well. Obviously, she's best known for Jurassic Park and among a slew of other things she's done with her career, but she was fantastic in this, as well as Tess, who her background is she was a professional volleyball player and she was this super competitive person, and she kind of put that aside to be married and raise her family and do all these other things. And you see the roller coaster that she goes on of emotions of her trying to find that competitive edge that she had with herself and how she felt about having to leave that behind. And all those things get kind of bubbled up to the surface throughout this movie, where you see where she's coming from as well. And you're just like, man, I feel for everybody here. Like how important it is to kind of sit through and talk through things, and you get them to finally sit down and really have that raw conversation that they should have had probably 2 years prior to this movie.
Yeah, because they don't. Yeah. It's really hammered home that they don't really talk, because when the divorce is kind of initiated, he's getting out of the shower and she's brushing her teeth, and it's like, well, should we wrap this thing up? And so, like, it's done in such a nonchalant way. Like, wait, you're saying your marriage is over in that way? But yeah, I had to smile a bit, and this is just me personally, when we learned that Tess was a former professional volleyball player, because one of my family members is a professional volleyball player. Her name is Tessa, but we call her Tess. So I'm watching a movie about a Tess who's a professional volleyball player. So it was just a little like, hey,
fun to hit home for
just you. Just a little fun bit there for it. But yeah, I thought this movie was going to be fun. Like when you're talking about seeing the trailer, it's talking about a guy who's being bad at stand-up, but it's also dealing with divorce. You're not exactly sure how that's going to work. Bradley Cooper's done some really good films as a director and an actor, but he's also had a few misses and stuff as well. But I think he did really nail this. Yeah, Laura Dern was perfect to be playing Tess, and Will Arnett, like I said, he was I couldn't see anybody else being Alex in this, because you needed that authenticity between, because we know Will Arnett is divorced and he's gone through that stuff. So I'm sure there was some stuff that he worked from his personal life within that and everything, but He was fantastic. Laura Dern was fantastic. Even got Sean Hayes in a small role, but he was fun to see again, even with a really just, it was kind of awkward, but it made you chuckle about them singing Amazing Grace around a table and stuff. But it was just, everything just felt like it fit, it had flowed, and it worked really well in it. And I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. We were supposed to hopefully see it last year. It got a limited release at the end of last year, but it never came close to us. So when it came close, I'm like, I finally want to see this and see if it's really worth watching. And yeah, to me, it was very much worth watching.
An absolute home run of a movie. Like I said, it just strikes that perfect balance of not taking itself too seriously, but dealing with the humor when it needs to, dealing with the drama, and just mixing it in a really well way that I really enjoyed how authentic it was. And it's definitely one that I'm glad we decided to do, because I know we were on the fence between this and obviously like Primate is probably going to be like the top box office movie this weekend of the new releases. But I'm glad that we decided to make this one, because it was kind of a surprise at how much I enjoyed it, man. Like, not to take anything away from Primate, I want to see that as well. But I'm glad we sat down to talk about this one for sure, because it's one that I'm gonna definitely watch again, because it was so well done. It's got a high rewatchability for me. I definitely plan on seeing it again when it gets to streaming for sure.
Yeah, Is This Thing On gave us Will Arnett's best performance of his career. He's able to navigate the emotional, hard-hitting stuff with the jokes, and being able to bomb as a comedian can be as hard as trying to tell a good joke, and he handled that near perfectly. Laura Dern was amazing as his wife, ex-wife, everything that you explore in there. Bradley Cooper has some really fun moments and his little bit parts, but it was a really enjoyable, genuine movie that just felt real. It felt that his journey through the comedy scene felt natural and real, but the navigation of their divorce and the emotions and everything between a couple just felt so much more real than a lot of the divorce movies that we get, where everything's kind of over the top and there's a clear kind of bad guy in the relationship. This is really genuine about a couple that just kind of fell apart from each other, and they needed to rediscover themselves to really figure out what's going on in their life. I'm going to give this an 8.5. I really enjoyed this film. I got some genuine, solid laughs out of it. It had some really great moments, but it also tugged on the heartstrings and gave us some really good emotion that I'm waiting to see it again when it comes out on digital. Like, I want to watch this again once I can.
For sure. And I'm glad we're starting out the year on the same page with this. I'm giving it an 8.5 as well. Just a really solid, well-flowing movie. You hit all the right notes, man. It's funny when it needs to be. It's serious when it needs to be. It's a good mix of both, and it just feels very authentic. I keep using that word. It just felt like such an authentic movie that you could really see that these two weren't really... It felt like they weren't acting at all. It felt like they were just two really like real people. Like, you could see this exact situation playing out for somebody. Granted, not everybody dives into stand-up comedy and is automatically, you get a little bit of the ups and downs in there, but you see the guy who's very obviously a successful stand-up comic, like, kind of explore that early stage that they could pull from experience, but you get that authenticity from it. And I think that's what makes it work so well. But yeah, 8.5 for me. Definitely want to check this one out again when it comes on streaming. Just a very pleasant, good surprise to start off the year 2026.
And it really felt authentic too when you're kind of going behind the scenes of the comedy scene and you've got all the comedians in one area. They're going to be dissing each other and talking bad about each other's sets, but also telling
each other
jokes and supporting each other and working things off of each other and learning and helping, because that's kind of the scene. It's not a big money scene unless you're able to get really big like Dave Chappelle and others like that. That is a very tight-knit community that he finds himself in. And I really love those few scenes that just kind of give you a little bit of a break from the emotional turmoil and everything that he's going through of trying to become a comedian. You're just getting the ribbing back and forth between a bunch of comedians. And yeah, it just felt so genuine with what it was trying to tell that, yeah, I had so much more fun with this than I was hoping it would be good. But it was a pleasant surprise with how good it was to me.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'm definitely glad that we started checking out movies with this one this year. Is This Thing On is in a limited release in theaters now. Go check it out if you got time, if it's playing at your local movie theater, for sure. It's one definitely worth a watch. And if you get to check it out, come let us know what you think about it.
But that's going to do it for this episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you feel so inclined, do all the things that help the show out, from follow, shares, likes, comments on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube and your favorite audio platform. All of it helps us out so much, and we can't thank you enough for your support.
For sure. And if you'd like to as well, give us a little extra support, go over and sign up at our exclusive Patreon to get episodes delivered to you early. You can get exclusive merch items that are going to be available very shortly. You can also have your name read out at the end of every episode. Go check us out at patreon.com/we'll bring the popcorn.
And that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.